I really got to make sure I keep my eye out for when they do the pre-orders. By the way, speaking of pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2, I should remind you all, or let you know, shall I say, that the Zelda Universe podcast will be coming out tomorrow. We recorded it this past Friday, and I ended up spending all of Friday evening editing it because I was having fun. So, so that's how that's gonna go. So look forward to that. There we go. Now, when we last left off, we were right in front of Hyrule Castle. And so we're actually going to run over to that point. I spent some time this week thinking about how exactly we want to more or less proceed with this next part of the story, because there are a few different locations that we have to go to, and they're all over the map. And so understanding in what order we would go to each location is important. And as I was thinking about that, I remember one of the core things that I feel like was really missing from the story as we get it here in the game. And that is the fact that as much as we love all of our main characters here, Malin, Saria, Darunia, Ruto, all of these individuals, we don't get a whole lot of time with them. And so there isn't a whole lot of discussion or understanding as to who these characters are and why they are so meaningful to us. Okay, I would actually like to have the music going when we do this next portion. I would like it to be daytime. So we're going to wait out the night. Get down. That's where I was gonna stay. Thank you. So the question then becomes, what are the best times in our adventure for us, for Link, to spend a specific time with the sages? Now, for the most part, that is provided not as direct interactions. We don't have too many of those, at least not long-winded ones, but at least the times that we interact with each sage in the game is a prime opportunity for us in our story expansion to have interactions with those characters. And so, with that being the case, our first sage is actually the one that we were just interacting with at the end of our last session, our last stream. And that was Impa. Now, in how they do it here, Impa takes us out and then vanishes, which really doesn't give us any real time to work with her. So, we have two options given to us then that we could work with. Either we get time to interact with Impa while we are inside the castle, or since Kakariko Village was originally the home of the Sheikah, and therefore Impa, in fact, Impa is the head of this town, as indicated, I think, by this soldier. Zelda's attendant, the great Impa, opened this village to the common people. We have only a small population now, but someday this place will be as lively as Hyrule Castle Town. Since this is Impa's town, we could have this location as an opportunity to interact with Impa. Now, the two major things that we need to know about Impa is, one, Impa is a Sheikah, and the Sheikah have long been attendants of the Hylian royal family. That's something that we haven't really understood yet. We haven't really learned about it. And the only way that you could is if you started talking to the villagers in town, either here or in Hyrule Castle town. The other is to identify that Impa has special abilities, special gifts. Not necessarily marking her as a sage, but at the very least, giving us some kind of general implication that Impa is uniquely gifted. So, the question then is, how do we reach that conclusion? What can we do in town that would identify that? Well, one of the things that we can easily work with is what I'm doing right now, in collecting all the Kukos. As we know, Anju over here is asking for help. Please bring my 7 Kukos. We're now down to 4. Please bring them back to my pen. So, first off, we need a general introduction. So we would come into town, us and Impa is leading the way and showing us to the base of Kakariko Village as kind of our base camp, as it were, before we begin our summit. We already know that Impa is not going to be taking us up Death Mountain proper, but since Impa is in charge of the town, and as head of the town, it is beholden upon her to keep track of everything, make sure things in the town are going along smoothly. It makes sense that she would stop by Kakariko every now and again to make sure that everything is proceeding as it should. So they would come into town, and I think Link would feel a little bit more at home here than in Hyrule Castle town, just because it's a little smaller, a little bit more spaced out, not so city-ish. And just general commentary on the town and what it looks like. Link being a very wide-eyed boy right now, talking about the things that he sees and stuff that's going on. Impa could use that opportunity then to explain a little bit about Kakariko and about the Sheikah as a whole. Link, you know, he's 10. Probably a little easily distracted. And while he probably heard a decent amount of the things that Impa said, he would also get a wee bit distracted, probably by all of the chickens. And so that's where the discussion with Anju of, my chickens are missing, could you please help me? And that leads to an opportunity one, for Link to do good deeds in the town, but also as an opportunity for him and Impa to interact with the residents. Over the course of asking for assistance on where you've maybe seen the chickens, there could be other things that are going on. Additionally, since the Sheikah are supposed to be a wide organization, we would also have the opportunity for Impa to interact with additional Sheikah. The easiest thing to think of would be kind of like a ninja network. That's how Sheikah, as in, well, Sheik, and additionally kind of the Sheikah as a whole, have been more or less identified as over the years. So it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to kind of re-emphasize that. And so seeing these Sheikah kind of pop in and out of the shadows, using Deku scrubs, etc., it could make Link comment about like how amazing these like ninja skills are. Though he probably wouldn't be using ninja as a word. Oh, that's right. I have been playing randomizers for so long, I genuinely forgot what Anju gave us for the chickens. I thought it was a heart piece. That's funny. Anywho, Impa would talk about, or at least somewhat describe the nature of the Sheikah and the nature of the shadows. Obviously, Impa is supposed to be the sage of the shadow, or sage of shadow. And so, while not talking about sages or anything, being able to describe the nature of shadows and how such things can be useful if used properly and justfully, or how they could potentially be used for dark ends and the consequences that can come from such a such reliance on the shadows. Dark, narrow, scary. Well of 3 features. Except it's full, so I don't know what you're talking about. But as an example of what the shadows can do if used improperly, either Impa would indicate the house of Scatola, or Link might be drawn to the house in some manner. Regardless of whatever reason, he would wander in, see a Scatola, freak out, get ready to attack, and then be called out. Oh my gosh, no, don't kill me. And the explanation of the curse would be explained. Yes, there's a promise here to make us very rich. Impa could warn of the house and say, don't go in. So perhaps then it could be more of a example of bad things that can happen from the shadow. Like what? And Impa would gesture to the house, and Link would say, what's in there? And then description of a curse or something like that. Impa would certainly leave it to Link if he wants to go see it himself. Not necessarily warn him, but just knowing that there's a curse inside. And of course, Link, with enough curiosity, would go in and find out then for himself the nature of that curse. Link would then run out. Probably a little bit unnerved because of what he just saw, and Impa would be standing nearby with kind of a, I warned you. And Link kind of panting, looking behind, looks again and sees that Impa has walked off. And Link would again give chase. There's no indication of whether or not death has ever occurred in the Kokiri Forest. And so, coming here to a graveyard for the first time, Impa basically teaches him the nature of death. These who swore fealty to the royal family of Hyrule. Some asked to make the ultimate sacrifice in the service of the king. And some asked to do even worse. And Link would ask, what could be worse? And Impa would refuse to answer, saying only that every people and every nation has secrets that they would rather not reveal, and some shadows that must never come to life. It is at this point where Impa must take leave and gestures Link towards the head of Death Mountain Trail. She indicates to give the letter to the guard, and he will let him through. And thus, Impa finally departs. Link would then come up, initially talk with this guard, and I assume, since we know a little bit about what this guard wants in his life, which is primarily just to be able to spend time with his boy and not be stuck here at the gate all day, every day. He's probably lazing about a little bit. I don't know if he would necessarily be this rude, at least at first. It would be more of a, yeah, sure, kid. No, you can't go up there. It's too dangerous, boy. Go on, go back to your mother. That's when Link would show the letter. And the guard, you know, he'd take it. I'm trying to, oh, here we go. I'll use this pamphlet, because I gotta mime this stuff. He takes it, he looks at it, just kind of amused, maybe even a little humored, and then he looks at it again, looks at Link, looks back at it. You? Have you read this? It's pink and whatnot. You could probably hear, this would be like a Zelda voiceover. This is Link. He is under my orders to save Hyrule. The fact that this man can recognize Zelda's handwriting is entertaining to me. I don't know if that's something that would be realistic for every guard to just know Zelda's handwriting. However, having like an official seal of the royal family or something, that would probably be a little bit better of an indication. Regardless, that's when he starts just kind of losing. It's like, this has to be a prank, right? Like, seriously? You expect to go up there because of... Well, yeah, she did sign it, but come on. One, why would he expect this kid to have Zelda's signature? And two, like I said before, how in the world is this random guard supposed to know Zelda's handwriting by heart? That seems a little weird to me. There are other ways that someone is supposed to identify their legitimate, and usually a royal seal or a crest or something like that emblazoned on the letter itself, on the envelope. That was a more realistic a realistic idea of what it's supposed to look like, or that it was how it would have happened is via that method. Regardless, it's like, you gotta be pranking me, right? Did my guardsman put you up to this? What is this? And it takes Link over and over again to be like, no, this is real. This is real. Look, kid, I don't know what crazy game our princess has come up with, but you've got to be joking. Do you know what you're in for up there? Yeah, I'm gonna go see the Gorons. Yeah, you're not just gonna go see the Gorons. You're gonna see a lot up there. I see you got a little dagger sword thing on you, but it's gonna take a little bit more than that to deal with what you find up there. He would not open the gate until after he kind of thoroughly discusses with Link what he's getting himself into. And part of that discussion would involve, obviously, the fact that it is an active volcano, and having a shield that is literally a piece of wood, not the best idea. And so Link is looking at him and thinking about it. And he would probably step away from the guard to basically on the let me think about this. And then he and Navi would start having a conversation about, do you think this is good advice? Should we follow it? I think Navi would agree to the proposition of getting a Hylian shield, or at least a metal shield, because she's seen what fire does to the forest. And so he would come back and thank the guard for the advice. Well, to thank the guard for the advice. Let me put it this. Let me put it this way. Link is coming back, and the guard is standing there, and he's looking at a sheet of paper, not the letter. The letter Link keeps. But the guard is looking at another sheet of paper, and it has a drawing on it. A drawing of a kid wearing a mask. And he's just like, never gonna be able to find enough time to go and do this. But my kid's gonna be so upset. And so with Link coming back and agreeing that it would be a good idea, thanks for the advice, that's when the guard would ask Link, if you have the time, I'm sorry I was mean to you. I just want to make sure that you're not getting yourself killed. Could you, if you have the time? And so, with that ask, Link would then head back the way they came. The challenge of having to deal with the masks coming up one at a time and us only being able to grab one at a time is always a little frustrating. But when you gotta, you gotta. Now we have a couple of different ways that we can approach the shops to try and make this back and forth a little bit more bearable. Because it seems a little unrealistic that Kakariko would not have a smith of some kind. Ow. And while, yes, of course, this is a Hylian shield meant for adults, I could also potentially see Link getting basically an upgraded version of the Deku shield and basically just making it metal. Either way, you can definitely see that happening at Hi Daddy Games at Night. The other is the question of our Happy Mask Salesman. Now, this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but obviously in Majora's Mask, the Happy Mask Salesman does not have a shop. He is a traveling merchant at that time. So with that being the case, we could potentially make it so that our Happy Mask Salesman is also still a traveling merchant. And that's one of the reasons why our guard in Kakariko is so distraught, as it were, about not being able to go get the mask, because it's a limited time offer. Since the Happy Mask Salesman is more of a traveling merchant, it makes more sense that we could go a couple of different options. We could go option one, the reason why he's only giving out one mask at a time, but it's also potentially an explanation for words I was gonna say. Why he needs Link as a salesperson, because he's only one dude, he's on foot, walking around the entirety of Hyrule. He would like to be able to extend his reach. And since, you know, Link is easy enough to work with, he's a child, probably thinks of it as good advertising. Kid running around with the mask, hey, look at that cool mask, you want it? Now, I am giving this mask to the guard right now for sake of convenience, because the next mask I would like to make sure I have to make things overall a little bit easier for us. Because the process of getting a new shield, as well as the discussion and haggling and all this stuff with both the masked salesman and the guard, probably ends up taking most of the day. And needing a place to find shelter for the night, that makes it a good opportunity for Link to once again revisit Lon Lon Ranch. And we're going to stop here. We're going to grab the skull mask real quick. And then we will head over to Lon Lon Ranch. Yay! Okay. I miss my bunny hood. And the bunny hood in the core game doesn't go fast anyway, so it doesn't matter. But still. Good times. Good times. All right. We're going to take the fast method, which is running backwards. And it looks... Oh, wow. That is excellent timing. Excellent timing. And so, needing shelter for the night, Link wanders into town. And he starts by knocking on the door. No one answers, but Talon's snoring is so loud that it causes Link to just kind of walk in and it'd say, again, hello? Well, I'll be if it ain't the forest kid from the other day. By the way, thanks a lot for waking me up. It took some doing, but I finally got Malin back in a good mood. So, what are you up to today? So, obviously this is just a mini game, but it's late in the day, sun is going down. Probably what needs to happen is they need to take care of the animals for the night. And so Link offers to help in exchange for letting him stay the night. Now, Malin and Talon are nice enough, of course, that they would let Link stay for free. But Link is super helpful. And so he would start by helping gather the birds. I'm so close to being 3 for 3. And it's during the course of that chicken gathering that... First off, they're certainly joking about marrying Malin. Link would be a little bit more of a... Wait, what? What? Marriage? What is... Actually, Link probably doesn't even know what marriage is, and so Talon would have to more or less explain it, and he's probably trying really hard to, like, ham it up. What marriage is, what he'd be doing, what Malin would be to him, and then Link would get super confused. And Talon would then start laughing it off. Like, no, no, no. After they're done gathering up all the chickens and whatnot, he would then hand Link some Lon Lon milk to freshen up and get himself re-energized. And then afterwards, Talon would ask Link to go and call in Malin for dinner. And so he would start looking for Malin. Ingo is definitely around, kind of about stuff. Link would try and kind of say, hey, I got him for you. And Ingo's being Ingo, just a big old grump. But in trying to find Malin to let her know that it's time for dinner, he runs into Malin again, and of course meets Epona. And yes, it is dinner time, but Malin is spending her time with the horses. They are probably enjoying themselves. It's also possible that this exchange doesn't necessarily happen until the next morning. I think in either case, whatever scene you want to draw, it more or less works the same way. As Malin introduces Link to all of the horses, he gets comfortable around them, even kind of has a bit of an affinity for being good with horses, except of course with Epona, who is very, very skittish, except when it comes to Malin's singing. But over the course of probably the next day, there is discussions, there's work. Malin opens up a little bit about her mother and eventually teaches Link her mother's song, which is, of course, Epona's song. And that obviously works wonders, and eventually Link and Epona become good friends. I still think this is funny. But it's during those discussions of family and close friends and home that Link is finally starting to, for the first time, feel a little homesick. And he is sitting around with Navi and kind of reminisces. I wonder what they're doing back home, etc. And Navi is expressing the same wish. This is not a place where fairies belong. And so with that, they decide that it might be a good idea to come back and just pay a quick visit. They haven't been gone for very long. By my count, they've been gone for 4 days, I think. 4 or 5. But it certainly seems like it's been a long time. And for a 10-year-old, that's a substantial amount of time away from home on your own. And so they decide to come in. And the initial response from everybody is moderately mixed. Because remember, we left with everybody very divided as to whether or not Link was to blame for the Deku Tree's death. And so because of that, it is a little difficult to kind of figure out exactly everyone's mood towards Link. Some people are kind of amazed in a, oh, so you didn't leave. Or maybe you did. So there's a, or maybe like, why, you should have stayed gone, or, you know, a lot of back and forth. Mito would make an appearance. And Mito, what do we think Mito's disposition is at this point? He's been humiliated. He's suffered a great loss. He very vocally blamed Link for the problem, for the Deku Tree's death, but at the same time, Saria, being Link's biggest vocal supporter, who Mito has a crush on, he probably has very mixed feelings right now. That Harum at the back end. A lot of kind of, yeah. He understands that Saria's worried about Link, and understandably so. And oh yeah, no, he's sulking hardcore. That's probably the best word for it. In fact, he's probably super sulking because Saria asked Mito to tell Link, if he should ever show up, where to look for Saria. Now, the Lost Woods are obviously immediately to their back door. And we have seen Deku hang out in the Lost Woods before. So this place is not necessarily out of bounds for everybody. But the fact that the forest plays tricks is well known. But the Kokiri, because they live here, they don't worry about it all that much because they know at one point or another they'll end up back home anyway. In their eyes, they probably see it like the forest protects them. Oh, dang, I need 5 more rupees? Darn it. Well, I can fix that. In fact, it was probably a game. I could see the Kokiri playing a game where they try and get as far as they can through the woods as possible before they wind up back home. And of course, Saria, who has a very intimate connection with the forest, the spirits of the forest, is technically thus far the only one to have made it all the way to the end. Because of that, she's always gone the longest. And nobody minds because, well, she always comes back anyway. Unfortunately, because Saria is the only one who's made it, that means Link is running around trying to find her, and that becomes a challenge. Then he begins to hear music. And he thinks, well, what's that? Where's that coming from? Why is that coming this way? And so he starts following the music. I'm just getting this for the additional Deku stuff. I don't think we can necessarily put this in the thing. It's just, hey, free Deku seeds. Thank you. Because I am nothing if not a completionist. The music first leads him to these two. Now, because Link has been in the Lost Woods a lot, just like all the other Kokiri, he understands what these are. These Skull Kids. He sees them as wandering spirits of the forest. And that's all he's ever really thought about it in that case. And so he sees that they're playing music and kind of ignoring him for the most part. Navi tries to get their attention. And they're mostly just kind of jumping, playing, and laughing as Navi gets more and more frustrated. One whole rupee. And eventually Link has the idea of trying to play along. This is when Link really gets actual kind of teaching on how an ocarina is supposed to be played. I'm glad they don't have us go to a metronome. Like an actual timer. Or actual beat. That would suck. Yes, I'm going all the way to get the heart piece. Because this is what I do. I have 2 more rounds, I think. Okay. I was hoping for an A. Last one. Okay. Yeah. So this leads to a whole thing as it were. As they're playing, they're enjoying themselves. And it's during that Link sees one particular Skull Kid kind of off on his own. Not necessarily playing all happily like this one is, but just a little bit more sulky. And Link goes over and tries to get him involved. And he's a little slow to open up. And until he notices a mask kind of poking out of Link's bag. Oh, can we not do that yet? Oh, we have to play Sorry. We have to be able to play Saria's song with him first. Okay. Dang it. That's stupid. Okay, so we'll have to do it later to have it be officially in the thing. But he would interact with him. They would become friends. And the Skull Kid then would give Link some initial directions on where to go into the woods. Eventually, of course, though, Link would get a little turned around again. And not wanting to lose all the progress he's made, he stops and tries to think on what he can do. And it is there that our owl will call out to him again. Link, fancy running into you here. And Link would be a little surprised. Fancy running into you too. How are you here? I thought everybody who came into this place got lost. Well, it's a little easier for me as I can fly above such spells. Which is quite literally true. He flies over the whole forest. A little easier for him to deal with it. However, there are other ways through the forest. Well, I know Saria has... Oh, right, you don't know. I have seen the girl once or twice. She has very fine ears. Ears? Yes. I think you have a pretty good pair yourself. If you just happen to use them. Use them? If sight is confusing you, let your other senses lead the way. And so with that kind of hint of an instruction, Link would stop and listen and once again hear that music, except not coming from skull children, but still coming from the forest as a whole. And because of that, Link is then led further and further into the forest. I don't remember what you guys have. I don't think I need to worry about either of you guys. I don't think you are selling any expansions. No. Okay. Cool, cool. Wanted to be sure. And eventually, following the sounds of the forest, he is led into an area that he's never been in before. I don't think we would necessarily have this Wolfos here. That seems a little kind of random. Since everything is so nice and cheerful with Saria on the other end, why would she set up this kind of guardrail? Ow. Similarly, I'm not sure about having these Deku scrubs here either. The only reason that we would have these scrubs here would be some kind of general indication that not all is well with the forest, which technically it isn't. But we also just went through the whole thing with the Deku Tree and stopping the curse. So that should have more or less put this place at peace for now. So I'm not entirely certain if it makes sense for these guys to be here. Regardless, after enough wandering around, Link is finally led to some ancient ruins where Saria is not just playing the ocarina for her fairy, she's also playing it for the spirits of the forest. She probably would have like a whole audience of animals and spirits. And they're, do they scatter when Link shows up? Or are they so enraptured by Saria's music that they don't go anywhere? I think the latter. And this would be the first time that Link is made aware of Saria's ability to commune with the forest. And Saria could explain that these are her friends, which is a reference that she had made when Link left the first time about her friends being different and different from Link, as they are quite different in a number of ways. And so they would spend some time reminiscing, enjoying this little reunion. And so this conversation would be interesting, because this place is more than just a grove. It's the location of ancient ruins. And so more than just a stump and a pillar, there would be other pieces of fallen stones and whatnot. And so they could be walking along them or on top of them. And Link could ask what this place is. And Saria would say something to the effect of, I don't know. This place is very, very old. But I feel that this place will be very important for both of us someday. Something to that effect. And eventually, Saria would ask, why, Link, did you come back? Are you done? No, I just missed you all. He would probably want to say, I missed you, being specific to Saria, but still doesn't yet have the courage to say that part out loud. Well, don't you have the ocarina I gave you? Like, well, yeah, I have it right here. Why haven't you played it? Well, I didn't really know how to do much with it before. But I do now, and he starts playing a bunch of notes that the Skull Children had taught him. And Saria would... It's probably still just a little bit random. And she'd be like, well, here. Try this. both of them playing the music together would again gather the forest spirits around them. They would have a fun little jam session and perhaps spend a day together here in the forest. And so the next day, feeling refreshed, Link would then be ready to head back out into the world and back on his quest. The only other way I feel like I can make this section work in terms of our overall narrative is if this was a flashback, where Link is reminiscing about a time he and Saria spent together in the forest as he's thinking about home. Which might be a good option. We would have to remove the owl entirely from that conversation, which a lot of people probably would be happy about that, but I digress. But I think either of those would be a valuable option. Either he's driven to come back home, or he just thinks about the time that he spent at home. In fact, there's a part of me that thinks that option's better, because there's a little bit less back and forth going on. That being said, it is very important that we have this scene take place, because that plays into our Majora's Mask story later on. So perhaps then it would be better if he were to be at... This was a physical thing that had to happen. Now, there's one other character that I do feel like would be important for Link to meet, and that would be Dampé. The challenge, of course, is we got to get there before the sun rises, and I don't know if that's going to happen. We're going to find out. Gonna be close. Oh, no, wait. He's only there in the early evening, which means we gotta wait. We gotta grab a mask anyway, so that's fine. We need a reason for Link to... come back to the graveyard. And I think the reason to come back to the graveyard initially will be the young child who is stomping around the graveyard. So Link comes back. He's starting to feel like he has everything he needs to head up the mountain when he runs into a small child. Not necessarily runs into, but he does see one running off and looking very secretive about it. Like he doesn't want to get caught. And Link is kind of curious. And so he starts to follow him. And he notices that the kid is running off to the graveyard. And so Link follows. And at first, Link doesn't see the child. Obviously, the child is very young, very short. And so at first, Link is looking around, trying to see where he went, and then the kid tries to jump out and scare him. But unfortunately, he's not very scary. But still a little perturbed, Link decides to do the same thing to him. And so he hides behind a grave, and then he jumps out and scares him. So the conversation that he and the kid have would revolve around the graveyard itself. Why is this child so interested in Dampé? Why is he so interested in the graves? Which then begs the question that we now have to answer. Why is this kid so interested in Dampé and the graves? It's a very intriguing question. Obviously, the kid is too baby-faced and probably young to be in any kind of goth phase. It could just be the fact that kids in general, at least young boys in general, have had the general attraction towards ooh, spooky, dead stuff, gross kind of deal. But maybe he is also interested in the stories of spirits. The ideas of ghosts. Because he's heard tales of those stories. And he thinks that maybe he'll be able to see one. Now the question is, why would he want to see a ghost? Well, maybe one of his parents. And if one of his parents is dead, that then triggers Link to start thinking about the nature of life and death. And what does that mean? which is a deep question for a 10-year-old to have to think about. But as we will see, this 10-year-old has to wrestle with a lot of questions. Exactly. My point exactly. You're only forced to think about it when something like a parent dies. I could see Link and Navi having that kind of conversation involving life and death, and what does that mean for anybody and people who are surrounding it. We now basically have to wait until nighttime before we can continue this story. And actually, that didn't take much time at all. Nice. And so it is while they are thinking of life, death, all of those things, it gets rather late. The kid has long run off. Probably realizing he needed to get home for dinner. But Link is caught up in thinking about all of this idea of life and death. And it is during that conversation, that thinking, that he happens to run into Dampé. Dampé actually comes up behind him and scares the crap out of Link. Hey now, my face may be scared. I'm not a bad guy. I'm down by the Gravekeeper. And yes, we have the heart-pounding grave-digging tour, which I don't think would actually happen. Okay, I have a little bit of time to try and grab a little bit more money. Oh, so close. And it's Dampé who kind of brings Link out of his melancholic stupor, as it were. Oh, I wish I had a bug. Darn. I don't see why a gravekeeper would be digging up graves. That's all I'm saying. That seems a little strange. There you are! Man, I got lucky this time. I need a bug. Thank you. And so, regardless, having the conversation with Dampé about, well, people enjoy strange things, that's fine, but a gravekeeper digging up graves, it kind of goes against his, his job as a gravekeeper. Regardless, it's in the conversation that he has with Link that kind of elucidates the... not necessarily the cheerful side of death, but more as a reminder that just because something is sad or something is inevitable, as it were, doesn't necessarily mean that it's something to be overly concerned about. It's not something to concern yourself with. Things happen. Death happens. You're sad that someone you love is gone, but such are the ways of life. And Link probably has a hard time understanding it. But the fact that Dampé spends so much time around death and is somehow still a very cheerful individual probably at least has a bit of a calming effect on Link. I'm not planning on getting all 100 Scatollas, just by the way. We do love ourselves a bigger wallet. Especially because we need a bigger wallet. Or will need a bigger wallet. It's nice to have more money. Let's put it that way. And that's all of them. Okay. It is not until the next morning that they start along Death Mountain Trail. But of course, it's, you know, we can't fast forward time yet, so we can only work with what we have. So we'll begin our trek up here. And it's a mountain. It's a steep thing, regardless. Hi, Cat Dad. Regardless of, you know, how fit Link is, and we've seen that he is a very fit individual. It's a mountain, and climbing up a mountain is hard work, and so Link could be walking a steep... If you've ever gone up a mountain of any kind, you know how much of a walk that is. And so between dealing with the mountain, the steepness, the rocks, and of course the monsters, it's a tough go. And it's when Link gets up to about this point that he's trying to catch his breath, feeling tired, and he leans up against a rock, and the rock suddenly moves. And Link and Navi kind of freak out. It's a moving rock. And that is their first encounter with a Goron. We know the current state of the Gorons at this point. They are very, very hungry. Now, I do take a little bit of an issue with the fact that the way they phrase the situation here with the Gorons is that they've become picky eaters, and that is the reason why they are so hungry. They could get their rocks from anywhere. There are rocks literally right to the side. But according to one of the Gorons in Goron City, they've all gotten so used to the awesome rocks in Dodongo's cavern that they don't want to eat anything else. So it is literally just them being picky eaters. And I have a bit of an issue with that as being our driving force for why they're having such a problem. They want to eat the good rocks. So we have a situation then where in the original here, picky eaters are picky for a reason. Yeah, usually because they're 4. Just saying. Generally, Ganondorf, it's in the way this is in here, Ganondorf not only brings the Dodongos back, but he also seals the cavern up. Let's instead have Ganondorf still summoning the Dodongos, but the Gorons are the ones that seal the cavern. I think it's fair to say that Gorons cannot eat just any rocks, because it's the most delicious and nutritious. Are in there. So perhaps then the problem is not that they're picky. It's the fact that this is where they mine the vast majority of the rocks that they can eat. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't as it goes. And so these rocks, yes, kind of, sort of, not really. Unfortunately, because of the whole Dodongo situation, they can only stomach but so much. And so they have food, but their supplies are limited. And so their problem isn't picky eating, it's a literal supply issue. I am distracting myself by trying to get that piece of heart. And I'm totally getting this piece of heart. Thank you! Instead of coming up by himself, I think that Goron would lead Link into Goron City. A bit more of a introductory kind of scenario as opposed to just wandering stranger coming in. Yes, the boulder in front of their main food source doesn't help But I still like the idea of the Gorons doing it as a safety precaution. Because, yes, they can't get to their main source of food. But there is also... Yes, bombs exist, quite literally. But the reason they did it, why the Dodongos did it, not the Dodongos, why the Gorons did it, is because the Dodongos are such a threat. Not just to the Gorons, but to Kakariko Village, which is right down the hill, and to potentially all of Hyrule. That's a big problem. And so until they figure out what they're going to do about the situation, as an emergency measure, they blocked off the cavern. So, when we come into Goron City, then, we're not having a... Whoops. Wow, I blew that. We are not having a Gorons lying around necessarily, like, starving. Oh, I'm so hungry kind of deal. But there is certainly a feeling of despondency. Because they understand that supplies are low. They're probably rationing what little food they have left, but it's no secret that they're about to run out. And thus far, they have not had any word of a decision being made or any support to be had from Hyrule. And so the Goron who brought Link in is probably explaining all of this and why this is the situation, along with kind of the general, we'd give you a better reception, we like having visitor, you know, the kind of, wish we could have you under better circumstances, but... And so with that being the case, it's a, well, what can we do about this situation? And Link says, well, Zelda sent me. Don't I count? You're the representative? Well, I can be the representative. That sounds a little too hesitant. Link would probably be a little bit more forthright in... his... Oh yeah, no, Zelda sent me. I must be the representative. I will totally do this. Like, really? Yeah, and then he would probably show him the letter. Zelda's letter. That would be a better option than the song, I should think. We're playing this because we have to, but the letter makes a little bit more sense. The Gorons would see it as legitimate and would then take Link in to meet with Darunia, who is understandably very upset at this turn of events. It's probably not just him. It is probably him and a bunch of, like, say, advisor Gorons or guild representatives, you know, some kind of city council or whatever equivalent that would be. And they're discussing the multiple problems that are currently going on in the area. Not just the Dodongos, but all the other problems that are happening in the city. And so, the discussion of what's going on in Dodongo's cavern, the poor crop harvest that they've had, the rock shortage, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that is probably going on. And when the Gorons tell Darunia that Link is the messenger, he takes it as an insult. Not from the king, but he basically thinks it's a cruel joke from some of the other Gorons. Like, okay, which one of you fools put you up to put everyone up to this? So, trying to figure out what he can do to gain Darunia's trust, or recognition at the very least, Link tries to address some of the problems that are happening in the area. Kind of a reputation building type of endeavor. And through that activity, he learns a little bit more about Goron culture, some of the practices that they have. There we go. Clear that up. And after a few days, things do start to look better in a lot of respects. Hi, Dorkdino! Or Dorkadino, excuse me. Nice to have you here. Welcome to our storytelling. So it's at that point that the Gorons are feeling good enough that they want to not necessarily have a celebration or a party, but despite the hunger, because things are improving over in the general city, as it were, they feel, you know, a lot more improved, a lot more upbeat, and Link, again, kind of helps with that. At some point, it kind of comes to their attention that Link has an ocarina. They encourage him to play it, and not entirely certain what to play, he decides to play Saria's song. And it creates a general fervor, not just with Darunia, but with the city as a whole. They're really enjoying it. It becomes this whole affair and basically kind of evolves into a party, which Darunia is eventually made aware of and joins in himself. So everyone is enjoying this music, everyone is enjoying this party, and everyone is grateful to the young man who has been such a great help in the city over the past several days. They can't have any kind of big banquet or anything, obviously, because they're still in the middle of a food crisis. But at the very least, this gives Link an opportunity to actually sit with Darunia and get a little bit more face-to-face time with him instead of being just dismissed out of hand like he would have been previously. I don't think... Well, Link would probably want to try and bring up the spiritual stone as soon as possible. But Navi, I think, would have enough awareness to say, let's back off on that until we have a better idea of what is going on. Maybe not necessarily those words, but something to say, now is not the right time. We just got into his good graces. We should not be asking for such a important artifact immediately. it would be during this conversation, I think, that Darunia would explain about the bomb flowers and why they're so important, how they're used to make bombs as just a physical item. And in fact, the Dodongo's Cavern was one of the main places where they did that. Partially because they grew so well in there, and also because it helped them in their mining operations, since that's where they mined all of their rocks. And Link would, again, kind of offer to help in whatever way he can. Which, at this point, they are doing what they can with what little bomb flower access that they do have. But you see, I don't like the idea of Darunia being like, yeah, you, 10-year-old, go solve the problem physically that we, all of these Gorons, and especially me, Mr. Hard-Buddy Muscle Goron Man, couldn't fight. Yeah, that's a great idea. So Darunia would explain to Link what the Dodongos are, what they were, how they used to be like an ancient menace that would roam the land, attack people and Gorons, and become a big a scourge to the land until they were finally wiped out by an alliance of Hylians and Gorons, thus creating the grand alliance between the two people. And that's why the king is a sworn brother to the Gorons. That's right, Goron Man. I am Goron Man! Anyway. Goron Man! By the way, I am basically hoping that we get a situation like that every single stream that I can use as part of the thumbnail. If you've looked at the thumbnail for the VOD for this over on my YouTube channel, I used the conspiracy board pose. I'm gonna use this one for the for this stream because it's perfect. Anywho. Anywho. So instead of this, that's right, it's a conspiracy. So anyway, so instead of this kind of situation, instead, Link is trying to help with the bomb flowers, because at this point, that is going to be their most useful thing, because at the very least, they can use that as part of their trying to start a mining operation elsewhere, and whatever exports they do in terms of selling bombs, because economy, mildly important. However, when first introduced to a bomb flower, Link is, unsurprisingly, unable to pick it up. Instead of just having an item that immediately gives him super strength, this would be the beginnings, I think, of Link going through some actual physical training. So he would spend several days getting stronger, building himself up. He wouldn't get super buff or anything, but he would be stronger. And eventually, at the end of his little training arc, he would be given this bracelet as a kind of a signal or a representation of his completed training. So with that completed training, Link would go about helping the Gorons as he could with bomb flowers. He learns a little bit about how to not make them explode as soon as you pick them up. There's certainly a couple of times where he's trying and messing up, and one of them he just does it like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with it? What am I supposed to do with it? And he chucks it over, gets it out of the way. Now, in this case, we obviously see that the entire thing blows up. Instead of having the entire thing blow up, I would say that it would be a little bit better, like just like what we had with the Deku Tree, we instead have just a small little section break open. Not enough for a bunch of Gorons, or more importantly, a bunch of Dodongos to run out and storm the place. But enough of an entrance that Link, as the small 10-year-old he is, would be able to slip his way inside. And as soon as he gets to the other side and he realizes where he is, he gets the idea. Navi, why don't we solve the problem? Let's get rid of the Dodongos, and then everything will be great. And Navi would probably be something like, are you sure about that? These things are apparently something even all of those Dodongos couldn't take care of. But this is our brave Link, and he is willing to give it a go. This is a place where a map could actually exist. Now, this place is not really well designed like a mine, if you really think about it. But you can make a lot of those arguments with a lot of dungeons. It's like, this really doesn't look like what X should be like, but we're just gonna roll with it because why not? But that wouldn't stop us from trying to have a setup like a actual mine in here, for example. And so, for example, Link probably would be able to locate a map in some kind of repository for records or tools, stuff like that. Unfortunately, all of the tools in here were designed for Gorons and not 10-year-old children. So there's very little that he can use in said repository. Thank you. Now, I failed to mention, as we're running through here, since these are Dodongo larvae, these would be the first ones that Link would... Ow. Link would run into. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do the whole glitch thing where I take the stone all the way over here and get up to get a Scatola. If we're not planning on getting all of them, I shouldn't go crazy to get all of them if I don't have to. So these are the ones that Link would run into first. And just like we see them burrowing up out of the ground and jumping out at us, that's exactly how it would happen as Link is looking around and it's like, okay, so this is what a mine is. Kind of trying to understand how things work before he gets attacked and has to fight them off. And of course, since they explode, there's no way to really confirm what it was that they were. They're probably talking about what the heck were those green things when they hear the noise of the Liziples, without knowing what Liziples are, obviously. But actually seeing something that has like an actual weapon. This is the first time Link's had an actual duel with anything. And so these guys are probably kind of aggressive and taunting, like, come at me, let's fight, stuff like that. And Link, thanks to the training that he has been getting over the last... I can't believe that's a thing. Over the last several days, he is definitely able to hold his own in a way that he would not have been able to previously. So with both of them dispatched, they're able to continue onward. There should probably be some kind of scene involving the lava. I suppose it could be the whole cartoony, it's on fire kind of deal, but I think it would be more of a just kind of recognizing what it is, what it could do, maybe like dropping a Deku stick or something in there and watching the whole thing just immediately catch fire. That would be enough of a warning to say, okay, we don't want to touch that. Coming into this one, Link and Navi stop and see the first ever genuine Dodongo. Adult Dodongo, if you will. I'm like, is that it? I think that's it. Link's like, what do you think we should do? Well, I don't know. Navi, I think, would fly out on her own. Since she's essentially like a bug to them. Despite being glowy, she may be able to escape their notice, and which tends to be the case with most opponents. And so she would look around it, analyze it, and then come back and comment that the Dodongo's head looks very, very tough and armored. I don't think you're going to be able to do anything against that. They seem really slow, though. We could probably get by them. Link would kind of shake his head and say, no, we came here to take care of these things. We need to take care of these things. Okay, well, don't go for the front. So Link would try and sneak up, which obviously I failed to do. And try and... which he's able to do, which of course causes... Stuff like that to happen. But after some close calls, Link is able to dispatch his first Dodongo. He would be feeling pretty confident of himself until Navi warns him. And Link has to dodge out of the way before getting incinerated. And Navi would kind of chide him that Link needs to keep pay attention so he doesn't get himself killed. There we go. How come the other one got killed in one? Never mind. Guess it doesn't matter. So Link is feeling pretty confident in himself at this point. So then comes the question of how to access the next kind of general section of the cavern. As at the moment he's on a bit of a, he's basically just on an extermination quest, and that means you got to be thorough in clearing out every single room. And so finding a control room, he is able to take care of some mechanisms that would let him go into this next section. Well, that's why I never saw it. Huh. Well, now I know. Intriguing. Also rude. The whole bomb chain reaction to lower down a staircase seems really... It doesn't seem like something Gorons would want to have. If anything, you would expect Gorons would want more ramps than anything else, but apparently that isn't an option. At least here. So, something like this then would have to be an accident. I mean, Link certainly looks surprised when it happens. Oh, it is very fun to watch. Definitely. So... We could just skip it entirely and say that that doesn't happen and there's just ramps to go up because that actually makes sense for a bunch of Gorons in a line. Or the ramps have been destroyed like right around that point because of the Dodongos all over the place. And this, obviously there's a whole bunch of bomb flowers there, so this is obviously where they were harvesting or growing their bomb flower crop. And so an accident by Link would set off a chain reaction. But the chain reaction also causes a cave-in, or at least a rock slide, that Link is then able to utilize to climb up and get to the upper level. I think crossing this bridge right here... Uh-oh. There you are. That was bugging me. I think it's right around here. Now, this probably would have happened when they first walked in because, holy cow, that thing is massive. But there would also be a point on here, just crossing it again, where, again, they look at it. And it's like, wow. Could that have been what Dodongos were back in the day? Man, good thing we're taking care of these now before they got that sized. And then they continue onward. I did not time that right. This is one of the more annoying things. I did not mean to do that. I apparently did not press the button properly. I apologize. Darn it. So... So the question then becomes, what is in this area? And I think, considering that this area, once we get through the other side, is... There we go. That's what we were looking for. Since this is the area where we get the bombs, it would probably be best then if we treated this area as where bomb flowers are refined so that they can become regular bombs. And depending on how that process takes place, Link and Navi could be going through this area, like seeing the step-by-step progression of how a bomb flower becomes a regular bomb. That's right, I killed her with a stick! And it took less time than the sword! I don't think we would necessarily have every single room and every single fight be a part of the story that we're making. It's kind of one of the harder things about this story crafting is what things do you want to try and put into the story and what things should not? And how detailed do you want to get with that? And would that somehow take away from that story? But it's at the back end, after watching like this whole refinement process and how it's done, at the very end, there would be some bombs in storage. So now they get up over into this area, and Navi's kind of fluttering about and saying aloud, well, that looks like everything. Was that really all the Dodongos? And then Link says, hey, Navi, look. Now, the way that they have this here with the Dodongo skull, with this black thing that you're supposed to blow up, that's great for a fun mechanic. But, you know, this is an actual skull that's been here for who knows how long. That should be empty. At the very least, the Gorons would have bothered to hollow it out. So instead of needing to blow it up to make a thing fall down, it would probably be more of a, hey, Navi, look. This is open. Look what's inside. Or maybe, because Navi is our observant one giving us directions, it's Navi who points out to Link that there is something inside the skull. That probably makes a little bit more sense. This area is most likely the newer tunnels where they have been most recently... Oh, seriously? Farming their rock sirloins and rock roasts. Oh, and I didn't even touch him. Nice. How are we looking anyway? 18. Oops. Link would definitely try one. You know he would. He would totally try biting into a rock roast or rock sirloin to see why the Gorons want these so much. It does not go well. I could see Navi laughing at him, actually. That's what you get, Link, for trying to eat rocks. So, instead of falling into a pit, I think it makes more sense that they just walk into that room in the first place. Navi's probably still teasing Link a little bit for trying to eat rocks. Link is feeling a little hot because, obviously, lava. Hey! And there's probably some kind of comment about Link, like, can you blame me? My stomach's rumbling or whatever. And then, like, see, I can hear it or I can feel it. And then they look around and it's like, oh no, that's not my stomach. Which is obviously a big problem. The first idea would have been to go around and try and hit the back, because that's what the other Dodongos did. That does not work. Navi's looking all over the Dodongo to try and get an idea of where he can be harmed. And so she's looking up, down, around, on the bottom, and everything looks armored tight. And it's Link who then gets the idea, not everything is armored. And chucks a bomb into the Dodongo's mouth. There's definitely a few episodes of dealing with flame breath, with the Dodongo rolling around. But enough explosions and enough stabbage. And the Dodongo finally ends up collapsed in the lava. Slowly begins to melt it and dissolve it until it is dead. As we did with the Deku Tree, there would not be a quick jump back. Instead, Link would basically walk out. He's cleared the entire dungeon of every single Dodongo, including the big one. And when he gets back towards the entrance, he discovers that there is a lot of commotion going on. Because one of the Gorons happened to see Link crawling into the cavern. And so the Gorons are essentially rushing to try and clear out the blockage so they can get him out of there. And so Link doesn't have to crawl or scramble his way through the small opening that he had created. Instead, there is a much larger opening where the Gorons are hurriedly moving stuff and are just about to send in people to try and rescue him. Instead, Link is walking out. He's a little smoked, a little burnt, I would say, but he's smiling and walking, I'd say probably triumphantly out. There's a lot of clamoring. Oh my gosh. You're alive? What happened? And Link says, the Dodongos are all taken care of. And everyone looks very confused. Wait, what? No way. No way. Darunia, who is there, it's like, is this another prank? They're dead. I killed every last one of them. I went through every room. Immediately, Darunia, like, instead of the troops being sent in to save Link, they're like, spread out, search, make sure there's nothing. They go through, they come back, and they're in disbelief. They're gone. They're gone. Even the king, it's dead. And everyone kind of looks at Link. And then the celebration just rains forth. This is a legitimate hero's welcome of, this is our savior. Oh my gosh. And it is immediate, it is profound, and there is definitely what just happened with Darunia. And from that point, Link is carried back to Goron City, and this is where the festival and the feast really happens. The Gorons are able to take what stuff that they were mining before back to town. They start having a whole thing. They're celebrating. They're honoring Link. They're able to get Link some food that he can actually chew on. And it is a whole deal. The story is already being told with some embellishments, but Link is happy to share the details of what had happened as he went in. It's after the immediate celebrations, when there's a little bit of a lull in the festivities, where Link and Darunia are talking about the general situation, as Darunia expresses obviously the incredulity, the surprise, and the thankfulness, the gratitude that he has for Link, and also kind of the strange circumstances surrounding their appearance. He does not accuse Ganondorf of creating the problem, but he does explain the timeline in which events happened. The Dodongos would have suddenly appeared, first in small numbers, and then bigger and bigger, and then the big one. They were already scaling back as more Dodongos were being shown up, but the appearance of King Dodongo is what was basically said, we gotta shut everything down, block the cavern, we cannot survive with this. It was probably maybe a week or so later, when Ganondorf then shows up. And Ganondorf says, I have the ability to solve your problem for a price. And Ganondorf was an unknown factor. He had never been introduced to the Gorons. The Gorons had no idea who this man was. And just like what happened with Link, they're not going to trust some random dude who suddenly says I can promise the world to them. As it turns out, they did not post this commission at the Adventurers Guild. So, with that being the case, they were completely distrustful and said to go away in but so many words. What the heck? Sorry, I'm checking something real quick. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Cool. All right. And while Darunia would certainly express a kind of an odd feeling about him, that's about as far as it would go, because there's no evidence to support Ganondorf being the cause of the situation. It was just one of the strange encounters that had happened along the way. Link does not say anything, but he does tuck that away in the back of his mind as, looks like Zelda was correct about Ganondorf's evil intentions. Potentially. It's certainly suspicious. It is then later on, when additional festivities are happening, when Darunia gets up and pronounces that Link, the savior of our people, who has spared us from starvation and death, will now be a sworn brother to the Gorons. And Link is immediately like, wait, sworn brother? What does that mean? What do I have to do? Is there something involved? Like, basically, you know, presents Link to everybody. All the Gorons cheer. And without Link even asking for it, Darunia presents as a symbol of their friendship the Goron Ruby. Have a good night, Cat Dad. Thanks for being here. I have an appointment tomorrow afternoon, as it turns out. But that's in the afternoon, so I'm good. Link's confused what a swarm. Yeah, exactly. He got what he wanted. And as an additional incentive, not incentive, but an additional gift, shall we say, Darunia recommends that not just that Link go up the mountain to the top, but you'll keep brushing up on your skills as you travel. You have you have grown immensely since you have come here. I believe we can help you develop even further. Come with me. So, Darunia would then take Link himself up Death Mountain. This isn't going to be a solo journey up to the rest of the top. However, this is when Link is leaving Goron Village, which becomes a little bit of a thing, as everyone wants to say goodbye. I'm sorry, that's still funny. To be perfectly honest, that makes it seem like the Gorons are being creepy. Which it kind of looks like they're being creepy, but it is still funny. So, I don't know, take that how you will. But regardless, this is the time that Link and Darunia have to spend with each other. Oh, that's right. That's a faster bomb. They give rock hard hugs. There we go, that's better. I'm just gonna take this, thank you. So during the climb to the top, which is definitely a lot longer than what we have here on the map, this is when Link and Darunia would become not just one brothers, but also friends. And Darunia would show off some of his proclivity to fire. Obviously, his immense strength. Some of the things that we actually see him do in Hyrule Warriors. Because why not? I think it's fun. Making Hyrule Warriors canon, dang it. Couple of important things. One, Link would definitely meet Bigoron right now. There's no reason that Bigoron would not be here at this age. He is here. That's just how it is. So that's how Link learns a little bit more about Gorons and how some of them can become as big as mountains. Link is also brought inside Death Mountain Crater by Darunia. Darunia would mention that down below there is a shrine to the fire spirits. A sacred place for the Gorons, as fire and lava are the prerequisites for the formation of rocks, at least igneous rocks. And since they live in a mountain, that's basically what they would say, rocks. And I could see Link joking to some almost exasperated. It's like, so is the next training heat endurance? Because it's blistering hot in here. Darunia laughs and says, no, there's someone up here I want you to meet. And so while we have to come outside to open the path, in our story, the Great Fairy is actually inside the volcano. Link enters alone. Navi says that she feels a familiar presence. Something like her, but not quite like her. Link does play Zelda's Lullaby, which summons the Great Fairy. Do we want to have one fairy that shows up at every single fountain? Do we just want to have this one fairy here? Or do we have one fairy at every single one? It's a big question. Because for the most part, this is the only one that's directly recommended to us, except for the Great Fairy that lives right outside Hyrule Castle. So all of the others are just bonuses for us. So I think what would actually be the best option then would be for the Great Fairy to teach Link in the practice of magic. Just magic in general. And so, feeling the magical energies around him, being able to focus it into different ways. that allows him then to use the spin attack and then eventually use all of the other techniques that we may or may not use for the rest of our adventure. After that exchange and that education, Link would return. Darunia is there. And they go out of the crater together. And this is where our owl is waiting for us. I mean, it's not our owl, but you understand. And there is a three-way conversation. Maybe even four. Navi, Link, the owl, and Darunia. The owl and Darunia would know each other, at least with some general familiarity. The owl and Darunia would probably talk a little bit about events happening in Hyrule that kind of go over Link's head a little bit. Obviously, Link is concerned about Ganondorf, but he is unaware as to how much of a problem Ganondorf could truly become. But the owl being the owl and Darunia being connected with the spirits of fire have a little bit of a closer idea of the mood of Death Mountain. And the mountain being restless, I think, would probably be something that Darunia would say. And the owl confirming that, yes, this is something that I have seen in my travels as well. Great events are unfolding that we must keep a close eye on. Things along those kinds of lines. Darunia would basically part with them here, saying that he needs to get back to his people, as the owl offers to give Link a ride down the mountain. And this is, of course, a really cool experience for Link, as he gets to see all of this cool landscape and the rising sun, all this stuff. Looks really, really nice. He leaves him down here. Not necessarily... Well, actually, no, it probably could be the roof. I'm just grabbing this because I can. Do I have enough? Ah, off by one. Oh, well. And Link would then proceed onward. We're making pretty good time. The question then becomes, where do we go next? Link would be like, I don't know. And Navi wouldn't know. Navi gives us the hint, if we wait long enough, that maybe Saria would know. And that makes no sense to me. It's a Deus Ex Machina, essentially. So the question then becomes, what leads Link towards to the Zora? Perhaps then The Deus Ex Machina, if we hang around long enough, just wandering about, Navi will pop up, hey, listen, and she will say, I wonder if Saria knows anything about the spiritual stones, because at this point, we have not been given any information as to where we need to go next. And in the game, Saria will be like, oh yeah, the Deku Tree told me that the Zoras have the last spiritual stone. And that just seems overly convenient as far as plot purposes go to me. It could certainly be a thing, but as I have tried to kind of keep everybody separate, I would want the Zora to remain separate as well. So perhaps then, in that flight with the owl, Link would be able to see more than just Death Mountain. He would see a lot of Hyrule as a whole. And the owl could talk a bit about some of the things that Link is seeing out in the distance. Most importantly, I think in this case, is just based on where kind of our map is, and I can't really... So, coming down from here, you can't really see Zora's River, but you can see Lake Hylia down to the southwest. Now, I have a couple of little qualms about the overall geography for this in terms of the Zora and Lake Hylia and Zora's River and all that, but we're gonna work with what we have. The owl would not necessarily say that the Zoras have the next spiritual stone, but he would say that Lake Hylia is where the... Ooh, hello. That was fast. Where the Temple of the Water Spirits is. The Water Temple. Yes, limitations of the N64, very much so. There we go. That might do it. Yes, just barely. Thank you. Love it when it's that easy. I need... well, it's not need. I want the piece of heart. And that failed. Wow. I completely and utterly failed. I failed twice. How did I do that? At least I don't need this one, thank goodness. Nope. Close, but not quite. It's amazing how what seems like a minor shift changes so much. Again, good thing I don't need this one. Seriously? Alright, whatever. Son of Sun, hello! So, thus far then, Link has heard about forest spirits from Saria. He's heard about fire spirits from Darunia. So hearing that, oh, fun, Genshin's great. Play that on Wednesday. So hearing that there are water spirits then at this water temple, would make Link interested in maybe checking that out. That did not work. I knew that wouldn't work, but you know. Oh, that one almost got it. That's not going to do it. That's okay. That's what I want. And now things get interesting. That's not gonna... Oh! Okay. Well, thank you. No. What? What are you talking about? All right, come here. Yes, yes, yes. Is that it? Is that it? That. Oh, come on! Ah! Okay, the fact that I was that close really bugs me. Ah, crap baskets. Nah! Dang it! I don't have enough money to go around again. So we're doing this one way or another. I hate you. What? I did the thing! I totally... Why are you treating it like I didn't do the thing? Whatever. I got the thing. I'm moving on with my life. Whatever. Literally my last chance. Okay, I've done the thing. I'm moving on with our lives. It's fine. It's fine. We got there. And I didn't even have to use that save point. So, at least there's that. I'm still very disappointed, though. Anywho. So, with Lake Hylia now being our point of interest, that leads Link to head in that direction. It's a little difficult to fully get your bearings when you're no longer in the sky, so he decides to follow the river in order to get to his destination. The river, of course, will send him to the west. We will not have this encounter. Because we're not worried about that. So, along the way, he has a couple of encounters. As he's following the river, the first is here. Because Link doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know exactly where he's going. He just knows that if he follows the river, he'll eventually get to Lake Hylia. And so, obviously, we have to do a little bit of back and forth because of our map situation. But ideally, he would be directly, as it were, following the river. And so, following the river, he would not run into these Gerudo. He would run into the Gerudo down below. So, I'm going to grab this heart piece, and hopefully I will have done this right. There we go. I did it right. Hooray! Here we go. Gonna grab this one. Thank you, this one. I have so much health. I love it. So anywho, following this river, Link runs into this Gerudo. Now, Link, for the most part, is just looking for basically confirmation of directions. He wants to make sure that this is the way to Lake Hylia. She is obviously caring for the cow down here. There would be a actual legitimate path back up, because there's no other reason for this woman to be trapped down here. And also you kind of wonder how the cow would have survived the trip. But this would be his first conversation with one of the Gerudo. And they have a pretty jovial conversation. It's very nice. And it's only after, when they're heading down following the river... Thank you, Daisy. That Navi points out that that woman was a Gerudo and was therefore a member of Ganondorf's tribe, which Link would have been pretty surprised about. He was like, man, she was so nice. We had a great time together. Huh. And then Navi would say something to the effect of, well, just because a person's from such and such a place is bad doesn't mean they're all bad. And Link would probably say something like, yeah, that's true. There are some jerks. I know some jerks who are Kokiri. Mito. I didn't mean to do that! Bug, come back! Come back! I think those two bugs just dug into the bridge, which, means they just drowned. Anywho. So they have, well, let's say they have that conversation that we just talked about, and then they make their way to Lake Hylia. It's nighttime right now, but for the sake of our conversation, they probably get here around early morning, I would say, because you say it's early morning because it is the time, the best times, quote unquote, for people to go fishing. And yes, this fishing hole is here as a location for our fishing minigame, but in terms of our story, our fisherman is out on the lake itself. And he is just getting ready to go out onto the water. And for want of company, he invites Link to join him on a fishing trip. And so, through him, Link is able to understand the joy and frustration and struggle, the battle between man and nature that is fishing. The man is super, super passionate about it. Link only kind of understands, actually probably thinks he's a little weird, until he actually, like hooks it. And the fisherman is, cheering him on. You got it, reel him in. Now, steady now. The usual fishing mumbo jumbo. I'm not a fisher person. And Link pulls it in. And, it's heavy. And it's big. And the fisherman's like, oh, wow, you did a good job. That's pretty good for a beginner. Good job. Good job. He's a little put off by it, and so he starts telling one of those I once caught a fish this big kind of story. But instead of a fish, he fished out a Zora. And Link, who's never heard of a Zora before, he gets a little wide-eyed and, what is that? And the fisherman, now knowing that he has caught Link's attention, starts spinning tales about the gorgeous and smooth, elegant Zora fish people. And Link is fascinated by this. He is enthralled and wants to know more. Where can he find out more? Is that a... That is a two-dimensional octopus. Sorry. Unfortunately, our fisherman doesn't know anything. He definitely made that story completely out of whole cloth, so he doesn't have any further information or where he can find more. So Link is kind of looking around, and he goes to the only building that's in the area, which is the Lakeside Laboratory. This guy is obviously particularly a chemist, but for the sake of our story, we're probably going to make him more of a general biological researcher. But unfortunately, he's not researching Zora. He doesn't really know anything about him. So Link is kind of kicking his boots, a little confused, until eventually he spots in the water movement. Thinking that somebody is drowning, he runs over, splashes around, swims around, and is instead greeted by an actual Zora. The Zora is not asking if we've seen anything strange in the lake. He is asking if we have seen a small Zora around. A small Zora girl. And Link would say something to the effect of, "You are the first Zora I've seen in my life." And he says, "Ah, I guess my search continues." But Link would not be deterred. He's like, well, hang on. I've been looking for... Oh, what's he looking for? Because he wants an excuse to talk with the Zoras more. Because this is the only lead he has on where a spiritual stone might be. So... If this is Link, and Link is being his helpful self, then maybe he could ask if he could help. And the Zora would probably chuckle a little bit. They clearly expect that Princess Ruto is going to be by water in some capacity. Zoras can travel on land, but they don't want to be anywhere that is too... where they run the risk of drying out. And so... he would... basically ask if Link can swim. And Link, being a little defiant, is like, yes, of course I can swim. And the Zora would, really, let me see. So he would test Link's swimming ability and more or less preclude that, yes, Link knows enough to stay afloat in the shallow end, but could not deal with deep waters in any kind of capacity. So he laughs a little bit at Link's amateurish, childish, shall we say, swimming ability. He says, if you're going to want to be of any use in our search, you're going to need to get a lot better. And Link, not willing to back down from a challenge, says, well, how can I get better? And in answer to that question, the Zora directs him towards Zora's domain. We are not seeing the owl almost at all in this entire setup. also feel like Zora's Domain would be... Well, that's the weird thing about this whole thing. Because Zora's Domain... No, I mean, if we're going to follow the river all the way to the source, which is what Zora's Domain is supposed to be, the source, then it kind of makes sense. It's just weird that the shortcut... I mean, the shortcuts are kind of weird by definition, so... That's saying just a little too much. So, fair enough. Oh, I love it when it's that easy. I would probably say that at the very least... Well, no, because the river runs the way it's supposed to. I guess there's no good way for the... for Zora's Domain to be close to Lake Hylia. Which I guess is alright. I am going to get money. Because magic beans. I don't know if the magic bean guy necessarily needs to be in the story. Maybe he could help Link with directions as he's going up the river. Though, if Link's already been told just go up the river, you'll find it, he doesn't really need anything more than that. Something to think about, I suppose. All the money. Why is the owl back? In case I need a reminder. I do kind of enjoy how this guy changes the price with every single one and changes his phrasing about how popular they are just because we're the only one driving up demand. Well, we got half of them. That's pretty good. All right, let's go. I'm still being way too much of a completionist, I know. I'm only moderately sorry in the effect that it takes away from our storytelling because I am too busy trying to get stuff. Just like what we've had a couple of times before, I think it's kind of unnecessary for us to have to play Zelda's Lullaby to get into Zora's domain. Because it's not like the Zora are actually a hidden people. They're just water-centric. Because they have to be. So instead, it's more of a going through the reeds, going through, you know, following the river, basically, until he finds the ramp and the passageway into Zora's domain. And there are Zora all over the place. It's a very moist environment because, you know, water everywhere, so the high moisture content makes things really easy for them to be up and about. So, walking around, he gets a general idea of what Zora life is like, and he very quickly locates a Zora and asks him, basically, where can I go to get better at swimming? And there's probably, like, swimming lessons happening with a bunch of kid Zora. Like, a whole bunch of Zora children. And I could totally see them playing diving games. And so, playing with the children, essentially, helps Link to develop his swimming ability. He has to adapt what the Zora do for a less aquatic body. But he catches on very quickly. And quickly befriends a lot of the Zora children, and consequently a lot of the Zora as well. And it's in the course of that friendship that he starts to hear rumors about Princess Ruto being missing. Now, it is not public knowledge that Princess Ruto is missing. However, she has been gone for a long time, and nobody's really saying anything about why she has been missing. The official story is that she is doing some kind of meditative something or other for, like, High Priestess duties. But not everyone is truly buying that because Princess Ruto is well known to be very vivacious and not exactly your typical High Priestess personality, shall we say. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 9. We're gonna fill up the whole top layer just in time for adult. That's great. So, Navi puts 2 and 2 together, informs Link that that's probably the girl that the Zora from before were looking for. And with that information, they start launching an investigation of their own. They don't have to go all the way back to Lake Hylia for... Have a good night, son. We'll see ya. They don't have to go all the way back to Lake Hylia to find this letter, but they do find a letter in a bottle, kind of off the beaten path, as it were. Not a common location. Since everybody was looking for Ruto, they didn't notice this bottle just kind of lying there in the reeds. But Link and Navi do. And they find out that there is a letter inside the bottle. Help me. I'm waiting for you inside Lord Jabu Jabu's belly. Ruto. P.S. Don't tell my father. Link would not immediately bring the letter to King Zora or to anybody. In fact, probably the first thing he would do is find out who is Lord Jabu Jabu. And then he would learn that Lord Jabu Jabu is the patron deity of Zora's domain, the guardian of Zora's fountain. You know, all of these great things that the Zora attribute to great Lord Jabu Jabu. He learns that Princess Ruto is in charge of his meals. It's one of her duties that she actually follows. And trying to be nonchalant about it, he asks whether or not anyone could be eaten by Lord Jabu Jabu. And kind of the usual response, the general response is, oh, he would never do that. Lord Jabu Jabu protects us. He understands that such things should not... Yada, yada, yada. But Navi would say, but just pretend. Would it physically be possible? Oh, it's physically possible, yes. Lord Jabu Jabu is as big as a house or whatever. Totally eat you up and... But he would never do that. He would never do that. So... Navi and Link kind of looking at each other, feeling a little concerned. They leave it alone for a little while. But eventually, they kind of run out of options. And so Link feels like he has no choice. Kind of like the situation with the Gorons in Darunia. Link goes into the audience chamber where King Zora is consulting with his closest counselors. They're actually talking, of course, about the Ruto situation. The doors were closed, but Link kind of snuck in, and it'd say, "What is this Hylian doing here?" And before they can, throw him out, Link presents the letter, which changes everything. This reaction, excuse me, this reaction is very understandable. That's not possible. And it's... King Zora asserts that this would not be possible, but his counselors are starting to whisper to each other to a little bit that Lord Jabu Jabu has not been acting like himself as of late. The idea of Ganondorf being here, not gonna touch that just yet. That happens after we deal with Jabu Jabu. Kind of just like before. We don't know that Ganondorf is a common thread until after the events of the dungeon. So they start discussing what it is that they should do about this situation. How will they deal with this? How do they... Because this is their god. And you don't just, like, every proposal you hear, like, it starts getting thrown out. Do we send someone in? How do you send something inside a deity? Do we have to kill Lord Jabu? How could you kill Lord Jabu Jabu? So, there's probably a lot of arguing, which is where the sound of the wink comes from. They're all just kind of going and kind of jumping in and out between a common speech and Zora's speech, which kind of has this weird whining noise attached to it. That's right, I found a way to put the whing in canon. Have to talk about something while this guy's shifting his fat butt. In reality, the audience chamber is not the way into Zora's Fountain. It's in another location. However, it is guarded. I'm picking this up now because it's going to save us time, but we'll get to this in a minute. So, now that he has confirmation, Link decides to slip past the guards, and he makes his way to Zora's Fountain. And Jabu Jabu is not necessarily just sitting here. He's probably swimming in the fountain, because he's a fish. That's what he do. He swim. And so Link and Navi are standing at the water's edge, and the question is obviously asked, well, how do we get his attention? Thankfully, Link, who has just recently learned how to fish, says, well, he's a fish, right? We just need the right bait. Are you telling me, Link, that you want to fish up a god? Well, I don't have a fishing rod on me, but it's not like we're trying to pull him out of the water, right? We just need to bring him over here and open his mouth. I don't think a worm is going to help you. And Link's like, yeah, that's true. So, what do big fish eat? Little fish? And then Link thinks, perfect. We'll use a small fish to catch a big fish. That lunker was 10 pounds. There's a part of me that wants to say that Link's been hanging on to it, but it's also a fish. It would probably smell really, really gross at this point. So we'll have Link get another fish. And he would then utilize that. And it works pretty darn well. Like this well. And thus we end up inside Lord Jabu Jabu's belly. It is surprisingly early. We technically still have 20 minutes, but I think I want to hold off. This, I think, is where we're going to end the story for tonight. I think this is a good place to save. Once we start, we will be right here, so we can start immediately and continue on with our adventure. Everyone, thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for your comments and your opinions, or just watching, if that's all it is that you're doing here. If you want, and you're over on YouTube, please leave some comments and let me know where you think the story could have gone, or maybe should go in the future. We appreciate the insight. As for that, we will leave this until next week. And whenever I see you, whether next week or on stream, hope to see you all real soon somewhere out there in the multiverse.